Chapter 3, Global Business. Here are the learning objectives. So, international business. A business is international if it buys, sells, or is located outside of its own borders. So, absolute and comparative advantage. These are some really important terms. Once you learn these, you're going to start picking these terms out of like political conversations or different conversations you'll hear on the news. So I'd really like you to pay close attention to what absolute and comparative advantage are. Absolute advantage is the ability to produce a specific product more efficiently than any other nation or person. Comparative advantage is the ability to produce a specific product more efficiently than any other product. So I have a little example to give you. So let's say I'm a manager for a local business and I have an assistant. And let's say my assistant types 70 words per minute, but has never been a manager before. And I type 80 words per minute and I have several years experience of being a manager. So I would have an absolute advantage over my assistant in typing and managing, which would mean I'm better than her or I'm more efficient than her at typing and managing. However, my time is much better spent in managing than typing. So I have a comparative advantage in managing, meaning my time is more valuable spent managing than typing. So I have a comparative advantage in managing, but I have an absolute advantage in typing and managing. So that's just kind of a little example that can maybe clear this up for you a little bit. So U.S. will export our excess products and they import our shortages. So if we've made too many pencils in the U.S., we'll export them to other countries. And let's say another country made too many microchips. So then I am going to import microchips from another country. So exporting and importing are really important when we're talking about global business. And here's a bar graph identifying our top merchandise exporting states. Michigan is number 6. And what do you think that Michigan is exporting a lot of? Probably vehicles, because we make a lot of automobiles here in Michigan. So balance of trade. So when we're talking about a balance of trade, we're just comparing our exports and imports. So we're only figuring in our exports and imports, and the goal is to export about as many dollars worth of items as we import. That would be the balance of trade. And here is a graph showing the U.S. trade over the past 16 years. And then we can look at the balance of payments. And this is a little different. So we're not only talking about exports and imports, but we're figuring in investment and money spent by foreign tourists and aid to foreign governments. So we're figuring in a lot of more dollars when we're figuring out the balance of payments. So here are some methods of entering international business. So there's licensing, which is a way that you can get your business to become international by selling the license of your business to a foreign country, which would give them permission to use the name of your business on their own products. So, and then also exporting would be another easy way to enter a foreign market. So let's say I make pencils for a living, using that example again. Let's say I have a factory and I make lots of pencils. Well, I could start making pencils and sending them to to Japan, and so that they can start selling my pencils somewhere in Japan. So that would be a way to enter that foreign market, is by exporting. And here's just a couple slides that explain how that works. Or we could use a joint venture, and that's a partnership formed to achieve a specific goal or to operate for a specific period of time. An example of a joint venture is Uber and Volvo. They've combined forces to create a driverless car. Once they're done with that creation, then they'll part ways. And then another way that you can enter a foreign market is by having totally owned facilities. And that's a firm's own production and marketing facilities in one or more foreign nations. An example of this would be General Motors. And here's a couple slides explaining that a little further. Then there's also strategic alliances, partnerships formed to create competitive advantage on a worldwide basis. Strategic alliances are growing at a rate of 20% per year. And then there's trading companies, and they just provide a link between buyers and sellers in different countries. And there's counter trade, and that's an exchange when you exchange goods and services between countries. So let's say I make a lot of pencils and Japan needs those pencils, and they may say, I'll take those pencils off your hands if you'll take my microchips off my hand. So instead of trading any kind of currency at all, it's just items or services. And then you could also enter the foreign market by multinational firms. And that's a firm that operates on a worldwide scale without ties to any specific nation or region. A couple companies that operate this way are Dow Chemical, Walmart, and Apple. And here's a table showing 10 of the largest foreign and U.S. multinational corporations. And here are the 9 steps in entering international markets. Okay, now whenever we're talking about exporting and importing, usually you'll start talking about any kind of trade restrictions. So there's 2 main types of trade restrictions. There's tariffs, and then there's non-tariffs. So first we'll talk about tariffs. These are the most common types of trade restrictions. It's just like it's a tax over things that are being imported or exported. And then dumping drives down the price of a domestic item in order to better compete. And then there's non-tariff barriers. So these create obstacles for the marketing of foreign goods in a country and increase cost for exporters. There's import quota, embargo, foreign exchange control, and currency devaluation. And then we have cultural barriers. So there's a lot of examples, or there's a few examples listed here, but also like Brazil, purple is the color of death. So if I'm making pencils and I decide to make purple pencils and I want to trade with Brazil, they're not going to want my pencils. So that's a cultural barrier because purple means death. So they wouldn't want anything to do with those. And there's some other examples listed there. Here are some reasons for and against trade restrictions. And really, the bottom line is you either believe in free trade or you are a nationalist, which is somebody that does not believe in free trade and believes in limiting trade as much as possible. The internet has been instrumental in allowing international businesses to grow. So again, with the pencil example, if I'm making pencils and I'm just making them here in Michigan and I'm only selling them throughout the U.S., but I want to switch to international business. The easiest way to do that would be to put my pencils online and open it up to anyone. So a lot of businesses are switching to international businesses really easily by just having their products available online. So there's trade strategies. They vary greatly from country to country. And these slides demonstrate that. And here is a visual, or a table that shows how much trade is occurring. Here's another table that's also showing the same thing. So moving on, there's a GAAT along with the WTO. They open trade among 164 countries. So the next few slides are about these different trade organizations that just have been created, that are just agreements with different countries to open up trade more in those countries. And moving on, that's what these are as well. And here is a picture of the countries that are involved in these trade organizations. And then here's a table listing some U.S. government export assistance programs that are available. There are several agencies providing financial assistance to international businesses. There's the Export-Import Bank of the U.S., and then the Multilateral Development Bank. And again, these are just banks that are providing loans to people that want to grow and move into another nation. Moving on, the International Monetary Fund is the same, along the same idea of opening or offering loans to companies that want to provide their products and services outside of the U.S. And that is it. Thank you.